You are listening to Dove Valley Deep Divers with Erick Trickel
and Lance Sanderson.
Ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground, picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line. Vaughn Miller did it again.
On Overtime Media.
And we are live, guys. Mile high hello, everybody in Broncos country, and welcome into the second ever episode of Dove Valley Deep Divers Live. My name is Lance Sanderson. I am your host today, and joining me, as always, is my good friend and colleague. He is your Denver Broncos insider and Mile High Huddle senior NFL draft analyst, Erick Trickel. Erick, what's going on, man? It's Senior Bowl day. What do you think? What do you think of the game so far?
Man, I've been enjoying watching the game, and it was actually awesome. My daughter actually wanted to come in and sit in my lap while I was watching the game, and so that was awesome, just spending that time with her. Normally she likes to be off playing, doing her own thing, but it was nice just having her sitting there watching it and watching me type. And she's started doing this new thing that every little move I make while I'm like taking down notes or whatever is she's copying me. So she has her own little notebook. When I go take a pause to like go tweet out something, I stick my pen in my mouth. She's been doing that. So it was just awesome watching her and watching the game and just spending some time hanging out with her while the game was going on and breaking it down.
Oh, man, that's awesome. That's you know what, just to have the idiosyncrasies that you have, show up in your children. That's kind of amazing, like. And I've been pretty busy over the most of the day today because my folks are in town. They came up so that we could finally have our Christmas. They delivered me a awesome shadow box. It has all the draft notes, just awesome. And, last night I was hanging out with Samantha and her boys, and her youngest came up to me and he's like, hey, is it okay if I call you dad? And I was like, that is probably the coolest thing ever. Yeah. Her youngest boy was willing to start calling me dad. So at least I'm doing something right, But anyways, guys, just a couple of quick things of business really fast. If you get a chance, go over to the Apple Podcasts or over on iTunes and review on the Huddle Up podcast and give us a quick detailed review. And hold on just a second. I'm sorry. And, just give us a 5-star review. It's a quick way that you can help out the show and get our content to more listeners and whatnot like that. So just if you get a few minutes, go ahead and do that. Now, guys, today we've got the Senior Bowl obviously going on. And one of the quick things that I want to just address is just some of the players that have been standing out over the course of this week. And now, Erick, being the Mile High Huddle's senior NFL draft analyst, I know you've had your eyes all over this. I have as well. Who are the, probably give me like 4 or 5 guys just right off the top of your head that have probably stood out the most down in Mobile this week?
Well, guys that stood out the most in a positive way, Lloyd Cushenberry definitely has to be up there. He's been a strong center. He's one of the only offensive linemen in the whole week that actually managed to shut down Javon Kinlaw before he got basically put down with his injury that he had. And so, just seeing him being able to do that, he really helped himself there, especially in a weaker, not super weak, but a weaker interior offensive line class. Center is where the strength really is. I think that the wide receiver from Baylor, Denzel Mims, really helped himself as well. He was showing good speed, basically catching everything that was thrown his way, being able to get open quickly and being able to just make his quick cuts to just get separation from the defensive backs just immediately almost. Your boy Logan Wilson had a really strong week, the linebacker out of Wyoming. He was looking good in coverage. He hasn't really been noteworthy today so far in the game, but he definitely helped himself during the practices, just looking quicker and more instinctive in coverage. And we already know that he is a good run defender.
Yeah. Excuse me. Go ahead. Well, I haven't really got a chance to see the game with the folks in town and everything like that. Just who is specifically standing out to you in the game? And I know you and I went back and forth last night. We've got another episode of the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast coming out tomorrow. I'll get that in and we can hopefully get that up and live for you guys. And you and I kind of went back and forth just a little bit, and not to really spoil anything, we kind of butted heads just a little bit with the running back class. Now, specifically, JaMycal Hasty, he had a touchdown run earlier today, but who else just in the game today has really stood out to you thus far? And we're not over yet. We're still just now getting into the fourth quarter. The North team is leading the South 24-10. I haven't pulled up on my phone, so excuse me. But just specifically in today's game, who has really stood out to you?
Well, if you want to look at just the running backs, I think that Antonio Gibson, who I have more of as an offensive weapon, he's a guy that you can use at running back and receiver. He's definitely shown what he can bring to an offense as from the running back position. He's running tough. He's running quick. He's just able to find just the open lanes with patience. and just use his toughness and his physical play to be able to drive down and pick up extra yards after contact. And I really like what he brings as a receiver. I think that he's helped himself today, although he is going to get overlooked a little bit because Darius Anderson, he's had an okay day, and then Jermichael Hasty's had a really good day. Benjamin, he's absolutely helping himself today, running hard, looking good after the catch. Definitely a guy that you want to get the ball to in space and letting him use his quickness and his ability to run away from defenders to help make bigger plays.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Simply Safe Home Security is like getting commercial-grade, enterprise-level security, but for your own home. Think about the security Fortune 500 companies use. They need to know police are going to be on the scene immediately. This is exactly the kind of security you get with Simply Safe. If there's a break-in, Simply Safe uses real video evidence to give police an eyewitness account of the crime, and that means police dispatch up to 350% faster than for a normal burglar alarm. With Simply Safe, you get comprehensive protection for your home. Outdoor cameras and doorbells alert you to anyone approaching your home. Entry, motion, and glass break sensors guard the inside of your home. Plus, Simply Safe protects your home from fires, water damage, and carbon monoxide poisoning. It's all monitored 24/7 by live security professionals. You can set up your system yourself with no tools needed, or Simply Safe's experts can do it for you. And it's only 50 cents a day with no contracts. Go to simplysafe.com/overtime today to get free shipping on your order, plus a 60-day money-back guarantee. That's simplysafe.com/overtime to save on home security today. SIMPLI safe.com/overtime.
Awesome. Now, guys, we're going to kind of get to your questions really fast, but one more just quick thing. Also, make sure you guys are following the show at Huddle Up Pod, or at Huddle Up Pod. Follow me at Sanderson MHH, and for Eric at Erick Trickel. Notice the CK in that as well. Now, let's get to some of these questions here really fast. And I do have one from Chris on YouTube. And what he says here is, do you guys know where Jeff Gladney is projected to go? Any chance we could get him in the second round? Now, Jeff Gladney, cornerback out of TCU, this is a guy that Eric and I are really high on, specifically Eric himself, just a great scheme fit. He projects well to fit into what Vic Fangio would like to do. Now, Eric, what do you think?
I think that he definitely could be there in the second round. This is a tougher cornerback class to really crack the top guys at. But I think that we're going to see some talent drop because it's not as top-heavy as people are letting on. I think Christian Fulton, Trayvon Diggs, I can see them going a little bit lower than people are expecting, and they're guys that are being talked about as top 20 picks. And Jeff Gladney, I think that he is definitely up there in the top 5 corners of this class. So I can see him with his ability to play off-ball, read plays so well, and then have an outstanding click and close to be able to get up there and make a play on the ball. And just his ball skills just stand out whenever you watch him. Guys had like 5 billion interceptions in passes defense in the last 4 years of his college career. Tremendous athlete, tremendous player. Not as physical as I want, but I can see a team in like the late first round, early second round taking him. But I can also see him being there for the Broncos when they pick in the second round.
So what other quarterbacks, just quickly, do you think could be there in the second round if the Broncos choose to go in that kind of direction? I know you've got, AJ Terrell, I believe, out of Clemson, Bryce Hall out of Virginia. I mean, there's another guy there, potentially not with necessarily the tackling issues that he has, but just to speak to a couple more of these cornerbacks that we could potentially see in the second round for the Broncos.
I think a guy like Damon Arnett, he's kind of getting overlooked because of Jeffrey Okudah out of Ohio State. And, I mean, Sean Wade, too, the redshirt sophomore that decided to return to school. Damon Arnett was kind of the forgotten guy in that secondary, and he's a guy that he just does it all very well. And I think that he can really fit into what Vic Fangio wants from his corners. This is a defense that doesn't have such a high value on cornerbacks because Vic Fangio just has a tendency to just get your average Joes, so to speak. Well, average Joes for the NFL, I should say. And just making a secondary work out of them. I mean, he's just brought so many veteran cornerbacks and turned their career around and bringing back some good years from them, like Prince Mukamara in Chicago, that Damon Arnett fits really there. Bryce Hall, CJ Henderson out of Florida, are two guys that I'm just not seeing for the Broncos there in the second round. Maybe in the third round, but I just don't think that either one of them will be there. Their tackling issues are just something that probably has them off the board for the Denver Broncos there in that second round. AJ Terrell, he's another one that you mentioned. Trayvon Diggs, depending on how far he falls, he's definitely an option there. I don't think he'll fall that far, though. but he's definitely can fit with what the Broncos want. AJ Terrell, as I was actually going to talk about a little bit first, I can see him going in the late first, but he did have a rough game in the national championship. Granted, the caliber of receiver and quarterback he was facing is just off the charts, so obviously there's going to be taking some grain of salt with his performance. But he is a guy who he has all the traits that you want, just have to work on some technical aspects of it. So if he's there in it, I can see the Broncos really liking him and and deciding that, hey, this is a guy that we want. This is a guy that we can work with. He has all the tools. It's up to us to build up those tools and make basically a corner out of him. Potential's there, just going to need work.
Now, Calvin comes in hot here on Facebook. How about this? What do you think Troy Pride Jr. from Notre Dame? What do you think of him?
I am very mad at the Senior Bowl because of him. This is a guy that I was often projecting to the Broncos to look at somewhere in the 5th or 6th round, but he has absolutely been killing it during the practices and the game today. He's actually been looking very good today, and just everything all combined, I don't think that he's going to be there in the 5th or 6th round anymore, which bums me out because he is a very physical guy. Down the field a little bit, he gets a little bit grabby, which comes from his physical play, but he can sit off coverage, read the play in front of him, come up and make a play. And that is just exactly what the Broncos want from their corners. And he just fits it so well. Now I think that he's probably looking, if not round 3, round 4 at the latest. Absolutely love what he's done. I love his game. Big fan of his. And I'm just bummed that the Senior Bowl helped his stock so much.
Yeah, that's pretty unfortunate, man. It really is unfortunate. Now we're going to move another step backwards into the secondary here. JT coming in on YouTube. He says, guys, if we don't bring back Parks, what safety would fit best in our system that we could grab in the later rounds?
There's actually quite a few safeties that can fit that versatile nickel safety kind of role that Will Parks has played. I'm trying to think of how to pronounce his name. Kakoa Noahine, I think is how you say it, out of Boise State. He's a guy that he can play closer to the line of scrimmage, very physical, can also drop into the slot. But I think that the best bet to replace him would actually probably be one of these linebackers that are more of a hybrid build, a guy like Cameron Brown who could drop down and play that slot role, or Akeem Davis-Gaither who fits into that role very well. A guy like that I actually think would be a little bit better for the Broncos system than a safety type who can do that, but there's plenty of options. Jordan Fuller, Nigel Warrior out of Tennessee, Fuller's out of Ohio State. Those are two guys also that can go and play that same role that Will Parks does.
You know, another guy that I'm really high on, and I've been kind of slapping the table for him just a little bit, not quite as bad as Logan Wilson. You know, this is the Wyoming guy coming out in me. Elijah Halliburton out of Wyoming. He does play very well in the box, very good tackling, safety, very good in the coverage as well. I think that he would fit in Vic Fangio's scheme as well, and he'd probably be, I don't know necessarily a quality grade, but he would be a day 3 prospect that the Broncos could probably target, you know, in the 5th or 6th round, something like that. Now, Gold Rush 5280 coming in here. I believe that's on Periscope, right? The Broncos need to draft more quarterbacks and wide receivers in this draft. And I'm gonna go ahead and kick this question off here because, you know, Eric and I are both really high, and a lot of people are very high on this wide receiver class. In fact, Eric is calling this the best wide receiver class that we've seen ever. Like not just in the past 10 years. This is like the best wide receiver class we will ever see, more than likely. Now, obviously, you've got the guys up at the top of the draft, and you know Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb, Henry Ruggs, Laviska Shenault out of Colorado, Jalen Reagor is getting a lot of attention. T. Higgins out of Clemson. Like there's a lot of potential up at the top of this class, but it's so deep, and it's not necessarily that the Broncos need to. I don't think that they need to target a wide receiver specifically in the first round. If they do, great, that would be awesome, and I would particularly like to see them go after like a Laviska Shenault, a guy that can create more yards after the catch and is really going to fit in Pat Shurmur's offensive scheme. But there is a big need with the Broncos at the wide receiver position, and they definitely need to get a guy that can take the top off of the defense. Now, we're also seeing a big thing, and you highlighted him at the very beginning of this episode with Denzel Mims out of Baylor. I really like his potential to fit in this Broncos scheme, especially as kind of a guy that can not necessarily take the top off of the defense with his deep speed, because he's not really that kind of a burner athlete, but his ability down the field, I think that he would be a really good fit, Eric, don't you think?
I actually really like Denzel Mims in this Broncos offense. I mean, he's not just a deep threat. He has plenty of speed, former track guy that can go and take the top off of defense, but he can also make plays after the catch on shorter catches, and screens are very deadly when it comes to him. And to answer the question about taking more corners than receivers, I think it should be pretty even to it, because the Broncos do need at least 2 receivers. They need to get a guy who can help take the top off a defense, but they also need a guy who can threaten defenses after the catch. Cornerbacks, it's not as valued though in this Broncos defense. So I can see them just going and getting like a cornerback in free agency and a cornerback in the draft and just being okay with that because Vic Fangio, his scheme helps cover up for the deficiencies that cornerbacks have. So I don't think that they should go more cornerback in this than wide receivers. I think that wide receiver, they have more of a need for it because they have to find an answer to be a complementary skill set to Courtland Sutton, to help Courtland Sutton help open spacing up. And spacing is so vital in Pat Shurmur's offense.
That's a fair assessment. There really is a fair assessment. Now we're going to continue with this wide receiver comments here. Thoughts on Donovan Peoples-Jones? Would he fit what Denver wants to do, or is his skill set the same as some other wide receiver on the team right now? Thank you, Black Knight, for your comment. Eric, I'm going to let you go ahead and take this one away.
He definitely would be a complementary skill set because he does have some good speed to help stretch the field a little bit. He runs quick routes. He's able to get open, not super quickly, but able to get some separation to make some tougher catches and potentially create a yards after the catch situation to help pick up, obviously, more yards after the catch. So he is a guy that I really like for the Broncos. Where, I'm not exactly sure. I think that he ends up possibly with the third-round grade. I think that's where he sits for me right now anyways. And I'm not sure I like him for the Broncos there, just simply because I think there are other receivers that I like even more for the Broncos offense than him at that point. But if he were to fall into the fourth round, then I would be a little bit more on board with it.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Barson's on YouTube says, I think we might finally grab a middle linebacker, maybe round 3 to 5. Who are the best fits?
Well, this is where you're looking at guys like Akeem Davis-Gaither, Troy Dye out of Oregon. Davis-Gaither is out of Appalachian State, by the way. He's more of a versatile guy that can play multiple spots. Francis Bernard out of Utah. Denver definitely likes to go to Utah. They like the Utes because they're playing at altitude, and they're not too far away. Francis Bernard, he's a very athletic guy, former running back that converted to linebacker, and he reads running plays like he is still a running back. So he's able to get into the lines very quick, get into the trenches and the holes very quickly, and he can drop into coverage, handle tight ends, handle certain zone coverages, man-to-man. He's able to do it all. Definitely needs some technical work in coverage, but the potential is sky high with him. He's one of my favorite linebackers for this to fit with the Broncos in that range. Other guys, I mean, there's Logan Wilson, who maybe he can be a fit for the Broncos. There's Cameron Brown, who maybe 3 to 5 is a little bit too high for him. If they want to find just a cover guy, Kamal Martin out of Minnesota, he's another guy to be looking at. There's plenty of options for linebackers in that range for the Broncos.
Yeah, and as I've already said, I mean, I'm pounding the table for Logan Wilson pretty hard, man. I want to see that. He grew up a Broncos fan, I believe Casper, Wyoming, Natrona County High School. Like it's just a perfect marriage. He wants to be a Bronco, and I think that he fits just perfectly in this Broncos team. Excuse me. Now, trying to figure out how to work this whole thing. If you just give me just a few minutes. Now,
Sorry, Lance, there's one thing that I actually wanted to address. And this is actually a good comment about how basically seeing the Broncos meet with a tight end here at the Senior Bowl. At the Senior Bowl, teams meet with every single prospect there, all from 5 minutes to 18, 20 minutes. They just meet with everybody there. Don't read too much into who players meet. They're just doing due diligence. Maybe Steven Sullivan, the LSU tight end that's there at the Senior Bowl, maybe the Broncos like him like in the 5th or 6th round, and other guys that they like in that range just aren't there. They're doing their due diligence. That's all it is. I wouldn't read too much into it, especially with tight ends, because Pat Shurmur's offense isn't tight end friendly. Noah Fant, he will have a role in this offense, but it's very 11 personnel. You're not going to use multiple tight ends in this. So I don't see them taking another tight end in this out of this draft, unless it's like before that 6th or 7th round. And then it's going to be a guy who can block. And that's not really Steven Sullivan's game.
That's fair. Now, Paul, coming in off the top rope with the $20 donation. Thank you, Paul. We really appreciate it. And I want to just kind of go back to what you were just saying there. And I did see this. This was the question I was trying to go back and find. How will Noah Fant fit in Pat Shurmur's offensive scene?
It's basically, you want to look at him and how he used a combination of Kyle Rudolph in Minnesota and Evan Ingram with the New York Giants. He's going to have that. He's going to have a role in line. So they're going to be working on his blocking skills a little bit to try and make him be more like Kyle Rudolph in those regards, and potentially try to get like a George Kittle type player out of him. Very physical blocker. Maybe the technique's not the best, but he's just going to beat you with his toughness and his physicality, which I have a hard time seeing with Noah Fant personally. but that seems to be what they kind of want to get out of him. I think that we're more likely to see him being used as a guy who, in line, you're going to be wanting him to block, but you're going to see him outside in the slot a little bit, like Evan Ingram kind of is, and have a big role in the passing game. And when it comes to blocking, maybe they'll try to pull him off the field a little bit and use other tight ends in that role. But it's just it's very hard to say, because his role is going to be kind of a cross of Evan Ingram and Kyle Rudolph, because other people in the Broncos organization wants him to be more like Kyle Rudolph. They want that blocking to be developed, but Pat Shurmur's offense, with Noah Fant's skill set, fits a lot best to use him in that Evan Ingram type role.
Yeah, and I really like Noah Fant. I really want him to be a little bit more physical, especially when he's going after like jump ball situations. But Noah Fant and the slot fade in Pat Shurmur's offense, especially in the red zone, that's going to be a huge weapon for this Broncos offense. Now, we're going to get to another question here. Jordan Johnson on YouTube says, "Hey guys, I listened to the Building the Broncos podcast. Ask Ed Valentine about what Shurmur prefers in a running back, and it sounds like Philip Lindsay might not be what he's looking for. So, is there any running back you think they will draft for Pat Shurmur's offense?" And now, again, Eric and I went kind of back and forth on some of these running backs, especially, because I'm not really sold nearly as well as Eric is. Especially, I think the class took a big hit with the Najee Harris out of Alabama going back, and the Clemson kid, his name escapes me for some reason. I do apologize. That's it. Thank you very much, Eric. I do appreciate that. Now, with the Broncos probably not going to go after a running back in the first round. Obviously, DeAndre Swift could potentially be a top 20 pick or so, something like that. I don't necessarily see that going to be a thing with the depth of the defensive talent in this particular draft class. But as far as like a third, fourth, fifth round guy, a guy that I could really see being a target for the Broncos, obviously, is Clyde Edwards-Helaire out of LSU. Now, Eric, who's another of these few guys? Because you actually had a whole list of names, and you went on for, it was probably 2 or 3 minutes on just talking about this running back class and just how deep it is.
So one guy that we've actually talked about a little bit already is JaMychal Hasty. He's a guy who can be very tough between the tackles. He offers some good hands and good vision and burst to execute those outside runs. Another guy is Jason Huntley out of either New Mexico or New Mexico State. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. It's one of the two. Another guy who's tough between the tackles, has good hands, good vision, good burst. Let's see, Tony Jones out of Notre Dame. I know the Broncos have been linked to him. He's a guy who's a do-it-all kind of back, 3-down back, blocking, receiving, running, tough runner between the tackles, good vision, good burst on the outside. And just to talk about Philip Lindsay a little bit, is one thing that Pat Shurmur does best is he adjusts his scheme to fit the players that the Broncos have, or whatever the team that is that he has. So I think that he will find a way to work Philip Lindsay into it. Philip Lindsay, well, he's not the best running between the tackles. He likes to, because he likes the contact, and he likes to run outside, which is an outside zone is a big staple in the Pat Shurmur offense. And so I think that they're going to find a way to utilize him, and Pat Shurmur will. But I definitely think that they are going to be looking at a guy, as you mentioned, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Tony Jones, DJ Dallas out of Miami. He's another guy that the Broncos could potentially look at that has a true 3-down skill set. There's really a lot of options in this running back class, and it's just a matter of taking the time to dig into them, because, I mean, running back is so easy to find guys to come in and have an impact on your offense right away.
Yeah, that's fair. And going back just really quick, Terry Randall coming in with a $5 donation. Thank you, Terry. We appreciate it, man. Now, with the Senior Bowl still ongoing, we've seen Darius Anderson out of TCU have a pretty big day. He's running the ball pretty nicely. Obviously, had a 75-yard catch and run for a touchdown. And you and I kind of just briefly broke it down. And like I said, I haven't really got a chance to watch the game with my folks in town and everything. You have, and you saw that play. Now, breaking down that Darius Anderson play, is that a guy that could potentially be a fit in the Broncos scheme for the Pat Shurmur offense?
I definitely like Darius Anderson. I like his tape a little bit. He's got good hands, and he was definitely able to showcase that. What he doesn't have is he doesn't have that breakaway speed, which I don't think that's a big killer for Pat Shurmur, especially with his offense. He runs tough. He runs physical. I think that he does fit with what the Broncos want, and, well, more likely what Pat Shurmur wants out of his running backs in this offense.
All right, now going back to the questions here, guys. Chris Clark on YouTube says, are there any offensive linemen that would be worth taking at pick 15 outside of the top 3 tackles? I haven't really seen many mocks have other positions on the O-line going the first. Now, obviously the top 3 offensive tackles, you've got Jedrick Wills out of Alabama. This is in no particular order. You've got Andrew Thomas out of Georgia.
Nope.
No?
There are so few people inside the NFL based off of conversations that I've had that have Andrew Thomas in their top 3.
Wow.
Your top 3 tackles that you're looking at that I'm not going to say for certain are going to be the first 3 drafted, because obviously all it takes is one team to really love Andrew Thomas, and I haven't spoken to everybody in the NFL, obviously, just a few people here and there. And Andrew Thomas is a guy that a lot of teams are viewing better inside or at right tackle than left tackle. So when I've asked, the conversation has always been about Jedrick Wills, Tristan Wirfs, and Mekhi Becton as the top 3 tackles. And there's a lot of speculation now after the week he had at the Senior Bowl that Josh Jones would be rising above Andrew Thomas as well.
Yeah, and there was a question. I don't exactly remember where it's at, and maybe we can go back and go find that. But someone did actually ask how if you were high on the Houston offensive tackle Josh Jones. Why don't you break him down just a little bit and give our viewers some pretty good knowledge here?
Well, he's got great length. He's able to set those vertical pass sets very well. He does get beat a little bit with inside counters, and we actually saw that happen a couple times during the game today. Inside counters just taking advantage of his length and his overextensions on the outside rushes, then them cutting back inside and him just not being able to recover with that. But he's very physical, very strong. Most vertical pass set offensive tackles in college struggle with adapting to the run blocking of the NFL game. And we haven't seen that. That's one thing that they were really looking forward to seeing from him during the practice weeks was how he would handle that kind of stuff. And he definitely answered the call there. He's a guy that I think that definitely helped himself. I think he cemented himself as a first round tackle. Just where at, I'm not exactly sure, but I think he's definitely somewhere in that first round.
Yeah. And with Mekhi Becton out of Louisville, we've actually seen kind of a meteoric rise, and we talked about this just a little bit last night, but we're going to kind of rehash this out really fast. What is bringing him up the boards as fast as he has? Because about a month ago, just playing around with the Draft Network mock draft machine that they have, they had Mekhi Becton in the early third, second round area, somewhere around like the Lucas Niang, Prince Tegawanago, who has had a pretty decent week down in Mobile, like. With Mekhi Becton, what is really getting him to be jumping up these boards as quickly as he has been?
Basically, it's the fact that he's 360 plus pounds at 6'8", and his feet are very nimble. He is so light on his feet, he's able to get out into his stance very quickly, has plenty of power to shut down rushers. Some speed guys do give him some issues around the edge, but his length and just his quickness out there is going to help him out with that, especially if offensive line coaches are able to work on his technique a little bit.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Paul coming back in off the top rope with another $20 donation. Paul, thank you very much. We appreciate you, man. Now, he asks, with so many roster holes and 5 picks in the top 95, shouldn't we highly consider stockpiling 2021 draft assets unless a guy you never expected falls to 15? Great job, my friends. And thank you again, Paul. We do appreciate you. Now, Eric, you and I are kind of in the same page on this one, and I've seen you just more with really the kind of the scattershot approach where you get as many picks as you can and stockpile all the assets while you have them. And now, if the Broncos do make a trade, and this is something that you and I spoke about last week as well on Dove Valley Deep Divers Live, was if the Broncos do make a trade, it's probably going to be out of 15 because I don't think that there's going to be a guy that they like that's going to fall that far. Obviously, you've got Ruggs, and if Tristan Wirfs or Epinesa, someone like that out of Iowa, it does actually fall to 15. I think that the Broncos are going to jump all over that. Now, I mean, you just really never know, and I don't think that the Broncos are going to try to move up. But if there is an offside chance that Tristan Wirfs falls to like 11 or 12, something to 13, somewhere around in there, they might maybe move up and go get him because he is so position versatile. He could start at the right guard position and fit into this Pat Shurmur offense very well. But I think that trading down is probably the best way to go. And if you're gonna pile up the assets for 2021, you want to take that number 15 overall pick and get out of that and move down and take an advantage of this very deep cornerback, wide receiver, and offensive tackle class. Eric, do you agree or disagree?
I agree. And one thing to factor in with trading up is always the value that it costs to move up. And one thing that I absolutely cannot hound John Elway about whatsoever is that he has such a high value on his own draft picks that he's not able or not willing to give up a lot to move up. So I think that's something to keep an eye on. But at the same time, he actually values other teams' picks very highly, that he tries to get a little bit more out of them than he may be willing to give up. So I definitely think that depending on who falls and everything, that I think trading down is a lot more likely than moving up, stockpiling picks. That basically it's the fact that it is such a hard thing to hit on draft picks, that a lot of teams' philosophy is the more picks you have, the more likely you are to hit. And that's kind of the philosophy that I have as well, is the more chances you have at it, the better the chances are of finding more picks or finding more hits. And especially with the Broncos who often find so many good guys to fill out their depth. I mean, I've broken this down multiple times about always hearing that John Elway can't draft, is that the Denver Broncos, since John Elway has taken over, have actually been a top 5 team in drafting because what they get out of players is basically they get a good years out of these players. Like, they may not always find the stars. They definitely have hit on some early picks. They definitely have these issues, but they always save themselves with the gems that they find later on. And so more picks, more shots at those later guys, more potential gems like Danny Trevathan, Malik Jackson, guys like that the Broncos have a knack of finding.
Yeah, and they do, and they also have a knack of finding the guys after the draft as well. Obviously, with Chris Harris Jr., you've got Shaq Barrett, now Malik Reed filling that role as well. Obviously, Chris Harris Jr., then they've done a really good job in the later half of the draft. Now, the second round, it might be a completely different story, but oh well. Now, Albert Knopper's coming in on Facebook. He wants to know, are there any thoughts about a different center? And this is actually a really good question because Connor McGovern is about to hit free agency, and I'm not necessarily sure what kind of money he's looking at. Now, rumor has it that he is looking for the same money as Cody Whitehair just got out of Chicago. They're really good center, so it's going to be a high price tag. We're probably talking double-digit millions. Now, I don't know, Eric, if you know anything, talking to any of your sources in Dove Valley, or even if you can share anything. But with Connor McGovern getting ready to leave in free agency, potentially this center class is actually a good spot for the Broncos to go in and find a guy like, Cesar Ruiz out of Michigan.
Well, the one thing to basically kind of keep an ear out for with Connor McGovern is what his asking price is. The rumor is that he does want, at the very minimum, a $10.5 million on an average per year basis, which is similar to, which I think is actually exactly what Cody Whitehair got with the Chicago Bears. I mean, and I can see the reasoning for it. He's a versatile guy that can play guard or center just like Whitehair, and his performance has actually, at the very least, been very similar to Cody Whitehair's has been over the length of their careers. With Connor McGovern, though, the issue is Mike Munchak a fan of his? And there's been a lot of rumors going around that Mike Munchak isn't overly sold on him and his play about being an integral part on this interior offensive line. So I'm not sure if that's where they want to go at. But for other options, I mean, you've got Lloyd Cushenberry out of LSU, who's absolutely killing it at the Senior Bowl week. You've got Cesar Ruiz, who's definitely a guy who's moving up the boards. If they're going to be more zone offense, then I think Nick Harris, because I think he is the best zone center in this class. I mean, the list goes on and on. There's a guy out of, I want to say, Wake Forest or Baylor. I can't remember where exactly it is. And his name escapes me at the moment. He's a very good center. There's Cole Cabral out of Arizona State, who, if they want to be more zone running, he's another guy that would really fit with that as well. So there's definitely plenty of options for this. And, it's a really good center class. What brings down the interior offensive line is definitely the guards, but plenty of center options for the Broncos.
Yeah. Yes, there are. Now, speaking just kind of to the offensive guard class, there's this small school guy out of St. John's and Ben Barch. He's a converted tight end. He's playing left tackle for St. John's University, and he's been playing really, really well at the Senior Bowl and really kind of stepped up. Is there any kind of an opportunity for him to move inside and play at a guard position at the NFL level, do you think, or have you not necessarily got enough chance to look at him and watch any of his tape yet?
I think that Ben Barch at the NFL level is definitely an interior offensive lineman. I just don't know if he has the length to really hold up at the NFL level on the outside. And this week, he's basically been exclusively working inside as an interior offensive lineman and just basically killing it out there. He's been probably consistently the second best interior offensive lineman out there behind Lloyd Cushenberry.
Okay, awesome. Now, we're going to get back to the questions here. Ben Stewart on YouTube, he comes out and he says, would Joe Schobert be an upgrade over Todd? Necessarily follow the Browns enough to know, but I do know Joe Schobert's a fairly decent coverage linebacker. Todd Davis has some flashes at times, but I don't know. What do you think, Eric?
I think that it's definitely an upgrade in coverage ability with Joe Schobert to Todd Davis, but I think that it's definitely going to be a little bit of a decline in run defense. Todd Davis is very underrated as a run defender in the NFL. He's consistently one of the better, not best, but one of the better run defending linebackers there are in the NFL, and it's just such an underrated part of basically everyone's game for linebackers. It's people. Linebackers got to be are such an integral part for run defense. And Joe Schobert, while he's not a complete liability there, it is definitely the weaker area that he brings to it. So I think that overall, it's kind of a parallel, or not a parallel move, but just move straight across. But it's just improving your pass coverage, weakening your run defense, which with the roles that they have, I think Alexander Johnson would probably end up stepping over and taking more of the Todd Davis role, which would definitely limit the impact that there is made from losing Todd Davis and his run defense ability.
Yeah, it is kind of with Steven Alexander as well, or excuse me, not Steven Alexander Johnson. I apologize for that little mental gaffe there. Alexander Johnson being such a good run defender as far as filling in the A gap and everything like that, being a really good blitzer. Losing Todd Davis as far as the run ability, you might be able to make that wash, but at the same time, Todd Davis is very, very good against the run. Now we only have a time for a few more guys, so we're gonna have to kind of make this a little bit quick. I'm gonna dig through here and see what we can find. Now, Chris Clark coming back in on YouTube, he comes in and says, if we can't get Ruggs at 15, are there any second-day wide receivers that have the same kind of skill set, just maybe a little bit more raw? Now, specifically speaking to Henry Ruggs out of Alabama, obviously he's the burner. He's the guy that is going to go, and I mean, there's rumors that he might run less than 4.2 at the combine, and if he does that, he's shooting up even higher than what he is already, and there's questions that if he's going to be able to last until 15 for the Broncos. Now, as far as a guy, I'm not necessarily so sure. I do know there's one guy in Jalen Rieger out of TCU that does have kind of the speed. He's not going to be that 4.19, 4.2 guy, probably a 4.3, 4.35, somewhere around in there kind of speed. But as far as just a true natural deep burner threat, Eric, speak to him, man.
Well, you've got Brendan Ayuk out of Arizona State, who's definitely going to be that guy that can go and just get downfield quickly, eat up a lot of space quickly, and just basically take that top off the defense. Now, I wouldn't say that these guys are more raw than Henry Ruggs is. I think that Henry Ruggs is a little bit more raw than people think. I think his route running needs a lot of work. I don't think he's as physical through his routes as he should be, especially when you look at how physical he is as a blocker. I would like to see more physicality there through his routes. I think that basically the biggest difference is that this is a guy that's going to push the record for the 40 time at the combine. And these other guys aren't. They're going to be guys that are going to be pushing more of that 4.3, 4.2, 4.35, 40 time. I mean, Denzel Mims, we've talked about him a little bit. He's definitely a guy that can fit in that. Tyree Cleveland, a little bit later, maybe not in the second round, or even day 2, but probably in like that 6th or 7th round, he's definitely got plenty of speed. Marquez Callaway out of Tennessee, he's got plenty of speed. A lot of people view him more as a returner, though, because of the speed that he has and his issues with route running. John Hightower, he's definitely an option. Lynn Bowden out of Kentucky, he's an option for them to just be kind of a weapon for them and take the top off of defense. That's one good thing about this year's NFL draft with the wide receiver position is that there are plenty of options that bring speed to an offense.
Yeah, I mean, there really is. And it's this class is just so much fun, man. There's everyone. I mean, J.D. Spielman out of Nebraska is later round talent there. There's just a whole bunch of guys. Austin Conway, another Wyoming guy. It's really more kind of a gadget player. I don't necessarily think he's going to be a guy that you're going to rely on to be just an a true offensive weapon as far as like a guy that's going to be a straight deep threat. He's going to be your gadget player, a lot like the Tyreek Hill, only just not nearly as fast. Like that's the kind of player you're going to get with Austin Conway, another guy that I really like, obviously with the Wyoming connection here. Now I do got one quick and very interesting question, and I'm looking at it right here, and we're going to pull it up. Black Knight comes back in, and he says, if you had the opportunity, if these two players fell, who would you pick at 15, Isaiah Simmons or Javon Kinlaw?
I would go with Javon Kinlaw. I think that he is a top 10 player in this draft class, and don't get me wrong, Isaiah Simmons as well. But the value that Kinlaw brings as a pass rusher is just so tremendous. I mean, he's a guy who can really disrupt on the interior defensive line, and with Bradley Chubb and Von Miller on the outside, having Javon Kinlaw in between them, I mean, it's just going to be havoc for quarterbacks and opposing game planners to decide what they're going to do. Basically, pick your poison. Isaiah Simmons, he'll definitely help out in the coverage, and his run defense is very solid, but I'm looking at weaponizing that pass rush just similarly to what the 49ers have been doing. They are winning with their defense because of their ability to get after the quarterback.
Yeah, and a guy that I want to just kind of ask your opinion of here just really quick, another one of those good interior pass rushers, Eric Armstead. Speaking of those San Francisco 49ers, is there any chance that the Broncos might pursue him in free agency if he does get, let out?
I definitely can see the Broncos looking at him. I mean, he's a guy that he can step in. He can play that 3-tech, 5-tech role for the Denver Broncos in the Vic Fangio scheme and offer up a tremendous player who can go and get pressure up the middle for the Broncos and help take pressure off of Von Miller and Bradley Chubb. So this is one guy that I definitely would like to see. But the gut feeling I have is that if he is cut from the Jaguars, then Calais Campbell is going to be the guy that the Broncos are looking at.
Yeah. Yep. All right, now, guys, we're going to do a couple more here. I'm going to pull just one really fast. Daniel Haycraft coming in on YouTube, and he says, can Evan Weaver out of Cal fit the linebacker spot for the Broncos?
I think that he can, but my issue with him is that he is just basically another Josie Jewell, and he doesn't offer much in coverage. He's a very, very good run defender. I have issues. I mean, outside of running very short zones that are letting him spy on the quarterback a little bit and reading him and following running backs in those short zones and the flats area, I just don't see him being very effective in coverage. Very Josie Jewell-like, and just not the athlete that you want in the NFL game today. And just for that reason, he's a tackling machine, but teams are looking for more athletic players at the linebacker position, and I can see him going undrafted as a result, even though to me that's not exactly fair, but it just fits with the modern-day game.
Okay. All right, guys, we're getting a little bit long here, so we're going to have to do just one more. And I saw this question earlier, and I wanted to hold on to it for the very last one. So this is going to do it for us today, guys. But the last question of the day, Super Bowl next week. Eric, are you guys rooting against the Chiefs, or do you want to see Andy Reid finally win the big one? Thank you, Ted, for the question. Now, this has been an ongoing debate on Twitter, on Facebook, on just about every social media platform. And there's people that are saying, like, if you're an AFC West fan, you need to be rooting for the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl this year, because at least, the best team in the NFL is playing in your division. And then there's Broncos fans on the other side of the table that say absolutely not. We cannot root for the Chiefs in any way, shape, or form. Eric, I tend to agree with the Broncos fans that say we cannot root for the Chiefs in any way, shape, or form. There's absolutely no way. Absolutely no way that I am rooting for the Chiefs to win this game. My buddy Cody, I imagine he might be watching this live podcast right now. He's a huge Chiefs fan. I know a lot of Chiefs fans, and they're all really good friends of mine. I don't care. I absolutely do not care. I want to see them suffer, and I want to, like, it's hurtful enough for me to see the Lamar Hunt trophy back in Kansas City, because at least we did have that one dig. They've never won a trophy named after their own owner. Now, Eric, what do you think, man? What's your Super Bowl prediction? Let's hear it.
Now, I am a firm believer that defense wins championships. After watching what the Seahawks did to the Broncos all those years ago in that Super Bowl, and watching what the Broncos did to the Panthers in the Super Bowl, by the way.
That's right.
I gotta go with the defense, man. I think San Francisco that's who I'm rooting for. I'm not going to be rooting for the Chiefs, no way. And I think the San Francisco 49ers are going to find ways to slow down this Chiefs offense enough to win. I think that they have somewhat of a blueprint that's been laid out by them by previous teams, and that they're going to be able to come in and just do just enough. And I mean, also with this is we kind of got to pick our poison a little bit. Do we want to see the Chiefs win and have to listen to that? Or do you want to watch the 49ers win and listen to all the things about, Denver should have got Kyle Shanahan? So got to pick our poison a little bit. I'd rather deal with the Kyle Shanahan stuff, because there's some facts there that just make it easier to deal with instead of obnoxious Kansas City Chiefs fan, man. Going with the 49ers over the Chiefs all the way. And real quick, before we get off here, I do want to address one thing. Yes, guys, I did cut my hair. I needed to for my day job. It was getting a little bit down into my eyesight, and I have to be able to see for it. So I had to cut my hair, and it sucks. I liked my hair like that. It definitely showed off my gray hair, which my lighting doesn't really show off. Plenty of gray hair. I absolutely like it, but it just had to come. It just had to happen.
I saw there's so many people asking, and there were so many people asking, like, what's up with your haircut, man? And so you can't win for losing, apparently. Like, these people, they're your style judges from now on. Like, it's going to be a fashion show on Dove Valley Deep Divers Live from here on out. But anyways, guys, that's going to wrap it up for us today. Thank you all for joining us on YouTube and on Facebook, on every social media platform for Mile High Huddle. This was Dove Valley Deep Divers Live. You guys can follow the show. Excuse me.
Just a quick reminder, next week we will be airing 2 hours earlier. We will be going to the 1 o'clock Mountain Standard Time instead of 3 o'clock Standard Time. Only reason why the last 2 weeks that we've been having it this late is for the Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl. Our new time is going to be 1 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, 3 o'clock Eastern Time.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you, Eric. I would have forgotten to plug that. And you're absolutely right. Yes, 1 o'clock from now on, 1 o'clock Mountain Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. But anyways, guys, thank you once again for joining us on Dove Valley Deep Divers Live. You guys can follow the show at Huddle Up Pod. Make sure you guys go on to the Apple Podcasts and iTunes, wherever you guys get your podcast content. Leave a creative review. It helps us reach more viewers. It really does. It helps our podcast grow. It helps our following grow, and we really appreciate all your guys' support. We really do. It's amazing. Now, you guys can follow us both you can follow me, at Sanderson MHH on Twitter. You can follow Eric at Erick Trickel, ERICK TRICKEL. And guys, if you like it, share it. Really, that's all there is to it. If you guys like the video, like the content, share it out there, make sure everybody gets to see it. Now, next week, I want to kind of plug this just a little bit. And Eric and I we talked just a little bit about this, and we talked with Chad about this as well. And there's been a big want with the new live podcast going on. We can do some screen sharing just a little bit. Next week, there is a very good possibility you might see Eric and I do a live mock draft using the Draft Network website and their mock draft machine. Now, guys,
and listening to your guys' input as well.
Yes, and you guys are
are there.
Yep, make sure you guys are there. Make sure you guys are ready to go, because we will be taking your consideration into this. We're going to use your guys' comments, and we're going to try to answer as many questions as we can. We're going to run through a live 7-round mock draft for the Denver Broncos. Now, once again, guys, we're going to end it up right here. So thank you all once again for following us. You all stay safe, take care, and have a great day. Go Broncos.